Welcome to the MattyRocks experience and the Zoom sessions, Zoom session number 2. And I am joined with special guests today, Oregon head coach of acrobatics and tumbling, Keenyn.
Hello. Thank you for having me on the show tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me. And I just want to take you back a little bit in the history of MattyRocks, as this is my first ever sports related interview.
Love it.
So thank you for being with me tonight on this monumental moment for me, and I'm absolutely honored to be doing this interview with you.
Perfect. I'm great. I'm so happy to be here. I think it's awesome, and we're excited.
Right on. First off, Coach, if you would, how are things going for you right now in light of everything that's going on in the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously been a really tough pill to swallow, I think, for everyone across the world. With athletics, it's unique because we love being active. We're with each other all the time, and that has completely changed with this unprecedented time. So we actually had to cancel our season because of the COVID pandemic, which was really tough. Just having to, break that to our athletes, I think was one of the hardest things I've had to do, and just kind of seeing the disappointment. But obviously we know it's for health for everyone across the country. And we've been really just trying to stay engaged with each other through Zoom. I've become quite the Zoom, professional in this time, but that has definitely been the hardest part, is to just stay engaged when this is out of our norm. This is out of our comfort. We love being together. We're always physically active at practice. We would have just had our national championship last weekend, actually. So it's definitely been a little tough, but we're making it do and just trying to truck along.
What things have you been doing to keep yourself active in your coaching role?
Yeah, for sure. So we actually have been doing Zoom. I just got off a team call before I hopped onto this one. And we also meet with smaller groups within our team as well. Because we can't physically be together right now, we've really shifted gears and kind of just done some fun conversations and also talked a lot on culture. We said if we can't physically progress our skills right now, let's work on the mental side. So that's really what we've done to stay active with our team. We even held a virtual end of the year banquet, which was really fun. We still got to obviously award accolades from the season, shortened season, of course, but we're able to hand out those awards virtually to the athletes that deserve them. So that's been really fun and awesome to just stay engaged and make the best of this, experience.
With obviously with your season being interrupted, where were you when you got the news that your season was going to have to end?
Yeah, I was actually at the office, and I swear my phone was not, it was going off the hook. And it was, everything happened so quickly. I feel like during that time, it was March 12th is when I found out, when we had to break it to our team. But, in the day before, we were finding out that we weren't going to take our spring break trip out to Hawaii to compete against Hawaii Pacific for the regular season. And then the very next day, the season was completely canceled. So everything kind of happened really quickly, but I was at the office, and then we were able to hold an emergency team meeting. Luckily, my athletes were on campus, so we were able to actually have that conversation in person. I know some other sports and some other teams across the country, they weren't together at the time. So I can't even imagine what that was like to, have a serious conversation like that and not be able to come together physically, just to kind of talk through the emotions and, make sure the athletes were okay after finding out something like that.
And being the head coach, how do you prepare to deliver this news?
You don't.
And keep the morale and to keep them positive?
Yeah, you don't. I will say, I think because it all happened so quickly, we didn't even as coaches really have time to process what was happening. It was just, we have to deliver this news and we're just going to go day by day, hour by hour. It felt like at that time, just to comfort our athletes and then, figure out the next steps of how to make this as positive as we could, given the situation we were in. Our biggest concern was just making sure that our student athletes were safe, that they were able to get home to their families at that time, because there was a lot of uncertainty in the middle of March, time when all of this started to blow up, was just, are they going to be able to go home? Do they have the funding to go home? What does that look like? And just making sure that their mental health was okay. And that was just our biggest concern at the moment. But you can't prepare for anything like that, to be honest.
Absolutely. I understand your next phase will be the recruitment for the next season.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Has that already begun?
Yeah, so we actually start recruiting athletes the summer prior to their junior year. So we are already talking to juniors that, would be potentially a part of the recruiting class of 2021. So that has been unique as well. Obviously we ask for skills videos and we want to see them tumbling and, doing different skills. But right now with gyms being shut down, we've had to kind of adjust what that looks like. I will say it has been really fun though, to be able to do virtual, recruiting calls and to just kind of chat with them a little bit more on life and, who they are as people and if they're going to fit into our program and being able to explain to them what our program's all about. So it's kind of been cool. Different, but very cool to take apart the physical aspects and get more into the personality and characteristics piece.
Absolutely. And what qualities must an acrobatics and tumbling individual possess in some of the things that you're looking for in those individuals?
On a physical side or mental side? Physical?
Both.
Okay. Both. Well, for recruiting, I don't know if you know this, but we do recruit from gymnastics, multiple disciplines of, so whether that's acrobatic gymnastics, artistic gymnastics, trampoline and tumbling, power tumbling. And then on the flip side, we also recruit from competitive cheerleading. So those are our two really big recruiting pools. Physically, we're just looking for power, technique, a baseline of skills, depending on what school you're at. Obviously, Oregon's a Division I, so we are looking for a little bit higher caliber of an athlete, but we do have Division I, II, III, and NAIA universities that sponsor acrobatics and tumbling. So each roster is going to be looking for a different skill set. But that's what I would say. Physically, we're looking for a little bit of a background in some form of gymnastics or cheerleading. We've also had some really unique sports though too. When I was back at Hawaii Pacific, we had an athlete that came from figure skating and another from diving, which some of those skills also translate into our sport. And then on the emotional side, of course, just looking for an athlete that's, willing to be a part of history, a determined, hardworking, self-motivated athlete. And that's, again, going to be dependent on each program. At Oregon, we're huge on the family piece. So it's really important to us, fitting into the program culture that we already got going on.
Right on.
Yeah.
I want to take a kind of a step back, and I want you to kind of give us an overview of what the acrobatic and tumbling program consists of that you coach.
For sure. So like a meet format?
Yep.
We're going to have to get you out to one of these meets, Maddie.
Hey, I've done my research. I've watched a lot of videos.
I know. I'm impressed. But we're gonna get you up to Oregon this next spring.
I would love to come. I would love to come.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So with our meets, we have 6 events. The first one is compulsory. So that is going to be the same skills across the country. So that's where you really get to see teams go head to head, apples to apples skills. The next event is going to be acro. And that's an optional round. You're going to see anywhere from 2 to 4 athletes stacking on top of each other, flipping off of each other. That's the best way I can put it. The next one is pyramid, and that's acro with another human on top. So you usually see 3 to 4 people stacked up. Then we would take a halftime and then go into toss event, tossing someone in the air, flipping, twisting. And then tumbling event is event number 5. We do have group rounds as well as solo heats. The group passes are going to be either 2, 3, or 4 athletes tumbling together, throwing the exact same pass, and then also 3 solo passes as well. And then the 6th event, people usually say this is the holy grail of it all. It is worth the most points in our sport, and it is events 2 through 5 put to 2 minutes and 45 seconds of music and just kind of organized chaos with 24 athletes on the floor. But really fun, high energy. You've been able to see videos, but anyone that hasn't, YouTube it. It's awesome, and you just have to see it for yourself in person.
Absolutely. Out of all those steps that you've just mentioned, which one of those to you, or to probably to the players, is the most challenging part of the format to coach and to learn?
I think it really depends. Depends what background you're coming from. Obviously, a lot of our gymnasts, they thrive in the tumbling. Our cheerleading recruits thrive in acros and pyramids. I will say in terms of coaching though, just the intricacy of it is the team event. You're coaching 24 athletes on the mat at the same time, and it is 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So those other optional rounds then max out at about 45 seconds for acros and pyramids. But for the team event, it is choreographing different formations and having those skills be competed with 24 people on the floor. Definitely the most intricate and why it's worth the most points in our scoring system.
There's an important name in this sport that I think we kind of need to talk about. Her name is Felicia Mulkey. And I want you to talk about her contribution to the formation and creation of this sport and how it's helped where you guys are today with this sport.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure you've done the research, but she was actually the first coach here at the University of Oregon. She was actually my coach. I was on the very first team here at Oregon. And how it happened was Oregon wanted to add a female sport with baseball at the time. So they had looked at possibly adding in competitive cheer. And the SWA, or Senior Women Administrator at the time, Renee Baumgartner, she had reached out to Felicia, who was coaching at Kennesaw State, and talked to her about this sport and what they wanted to do and should they start competitive cheerleading. And Fee kind of came up with the idea, yeah, we'd love to add this female sport, but cheerleading's been around for decades. I'm coming from a cheerleading background. Reality is we've never gotten to that sport level with cheer. So how do we adjust? Obviously, the athleticism is crazy in cheerleading, but how do we adjust what we're doing there and create a sport for females that the NCAA will take under its wing? Right. And that's when they kind of came up with acrobatics and tumbling. You know, we asked the general public, the people that didn't love cheerleading, what do you hate about it? A lot of them said the uniforms, the bows, the subjectivity in scoring, all of those different aspects. The fact that you train all year for 2 minutes and 30 seconds and then it's done in a blink of an eye. So that's when Felicia came up with the idea of acrobatics and tumbling. And at the time it was called stunts and gymnastics. So we've seen an evolution of the name over the past decade, but also kind of an evolution of the skills as well. But yeah, she is, you know, the creator of it and got other handful of female coaches across the country to buy into this, and then the rest is history.
It's been an emerging sport and it's getting more and more recognition over the years. Would you say that the pushback that was originally came from this has dissipated over the years now?
For sure. And I don't even know if it was necessarily pushback. I think it was really distinguishing the difference between acrobatics and tumbling and competitive cheerleading, and just in the world of varsity athletics at universities across the country. Even for ours, you know, we coexist with a cheer team at Oregon. They are the face of the university. They fall under athletics as well, but they are cheering on the other teams, whereas acrobatics and tumbling is competing on behalf of the university. We do count for Title IX, which is awesome. And yeah, we are waiting for that emerging sport vote. Division II and Division III just got pushed in January. So they will be effective August 1st this year for emerging sport status, which is amazing. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we were supposed to have that vote for Division I in April, but we are now possibly pushed back to a June vote. So that's where we're at with that.
Right on. The early years. Let's take a step back to the early years of your life in Honolulu, Hawaii. And let's give the viewers insight to how acrobatics and tumbling and cheer came into your life. For
sure. So I'll be honest, I tried the volleyball thing out and was so bad. So bad, but the coach and I just had an awesome relationship. She apparently loved my hard work, even though I was horrible at it. So she allowed me to be the manager. I did that for a year and realized volleyball was just not for me. So I got into competitive cheerleading at my high school. And at the time, all-star cheerleading was not very big in Hawaii at all. So I did high school cheer for Kamehameha, competed at UCA Nationals, won a couple national championships there. And then I actually came to Oregon before the inception of acrobatics and tumbling. I just came to the University of Oregon because I loved it. I loved the atmosphere. The community reminded me a lot of home, just kind of a mixture of Hawaii and just that family vibe here in Eugene. And then I heard about this all-girl competitive team that was starting my sophomore year. So I reached out to Felicia as a freshman and asked her if I could come to one of their practices. I walked into our indoor football facility and there was 7 girls, and she's like, don't worry, we're going to have about 36 girls here in the fall, and we're going to be a full-fledged team. And so I kind of walked in and saw 7 of them and was like, I don't know if this is for me. So then I actually went to the walk-on tryout the fall of my sophomore year, and was offered a position, and then got to compete for the University of Oregon for 3 years in acrobatics and tumbling.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Early on, did you have any influences who you looked up to that really got you, more motivated into the sport?
For sure. I think it was, I don't know if it was necessarily individuals. I did think it was just cool. You know, we were kind of creating history, and we were the pioneers of it in the beginning. And we used to fantasize about being on ESPN and, having our meets televised and all of this stuff. And now we're living in that. And I just think I've been really blessed to be a part of it from the very beginning, when we had to explain what acrobatics and tumbling was, even at the University of Oregon, to now when we're, competing in Matthew Knight Arena. Our athletes are on the big screen outside of the arena being promoted for our meets. And I think it's just been really cool, just that kind of girl power. I'll be completely honest. I think that's what motivated us.
Absolutely.
Was to just kind of be a force with that.
After high school, what made you decide on Oregon? Was it the program?
No, because they didn't have acro when I first started. It was just the university. I got into all the schools I applied to, and University of Oregon was the first on the list that I visited with my parents. And I just fell in love with the atmosphere of the athletics, the culture around University of Oregon. I loved the campus. And like I said, Eugene just reminded me a lot of Hawaii in a sense of that family feel.
Right.
It's a big university, but a really family feel. And I loved that. And that's kind of why I chose Oregon.
What would you say was your most memorable moment as a player at your time in Oregon?
Probably winning our first national championship. It was, just so surreal to be in Matthew Knight Arena. And it came down to us in Maryland and at the time, and it was a really close meet, and it was just kind of all that hard work paying off. And that was definitely a memorable moment of mine, just being able to celebrate with teammates.
Right on. How did the coaching opportunity come together for you and take shape at Hawaii Pacific University?
Yeah. So I actually, after I graduated from the University of Oregon, I didn't really want to get into coaching, surprisingly. And here I am 7 years later. But I moved actually down to LA, and I worked for Staples Corporate for a year. Thought that's what I wanted to do. And then Felicia actually had called me about Hawaii Pacific starting an acrobatics and tumbling program. She's like, I know you didn't want to coach originally, but would you be interested in applying for this job? And of course, I said I would regret not trying for the position. So I applied and got to start the acrobatics and tumbling program in my home state. First program in Hawaii, and was able to coach there for 4 seasons before getting this job here.
Very nice. Now the head coach at Oregon, returning to where it all started for you. How did this opportunity come together and take shape for you?
Yeah, so I had just finished my 4th season at Hawaii Pacific, and I saw an article come out that, the position was going to be opening at Oregon, and that's always been my end goal, was to be a Division I head coach. Doing it at the University of Oregon, where it all started for me, was kind of, surreal, the cherry on the top. So when I heard about this opportunity, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to apply. So I did, and was fortunate enough to get the position, and, just finished out my shortened 3rd season here back at Oregon.
Good for you. To be a successful coach at this sport, what qualities must you possess?
I think just
you're gonna have to pat yourself on the back here. You're gonna have to really dig deep and.
Yeah, I honestly think a passion for this sport. Obviously, we've been in it since the beginning, as an athlete and then coaching. It's no secret that we're not at the top of salaries. We don't do this for the money as coaches right now. We do it because we love this sport and truly the opportunity. I know it sounds a little cliche, but for me, I didn't have this as an opportunity when I first came to college. It presented itself my 2nd year. And I think just to be able to give this experience that I had as a student athlete to my current student athletes is really what makes you successful in the sport, is that passion, that care, and just that love you have for wanting to see your student athletes grow as athletes and as people, and just see them successful in all aspects of life. I think that's definitely the most satisfying part of being a coach, is just seeing your athletes grow up over the course of 4 or 5 years.
Absolutely. 3 years on the job now there, most memorable moment for you? And I'm sure there's many.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. To be completely honest, and this is a little weird, but it was last year at the national championship. We ended up not winning. Don't get me wrong. I would have loved for us to pull out the win. But before that final championship meet in our locker room, it was the first time that I think we finally came together as a family. And family is something that it means a lot to me growing up in Hawaii. It's a huge part of my culture and my childhood. But when I first came here to Oregon, that family culture was definitely broken in this program. I also came in with an entirely new coaching staff. We had 19 freshmen, and we were not a family at all. It's definitely something that we worked on. And at the end of last year, so the end of my second year, there was a moment in the locker room before we went out to compete against Baylor in that final meet, that we all just came together. And it didn't matter about the outcome at that moment. It didn't matter about the trophy. All that mattered was that we were going to go out there and fight for each other and have each other's back. And I think that's all you can ask for. Is just like that positive culture vibe and that family piece. So I think for me, that's been the most memorable so far as a coach.
What is one of your most favorite things about coaching in general?
Honestly, seeing how happy athletes are when they hit something on the mat. You know, nobody in the fans get to see the practice. They don't get to see the falls. They don't get to see the trials. But one of the most exciting moments for me is seeing all those things and then seeing it come to light in the middle of the mat. And when an athlete hits their skill, just that pure excitement and that satisfaction of success, honestly, just makes me so happy from the side.
Right on.
Yeah.
As the head coach, you have to be tough, I'm sure, on your players. And how do you deal with players that maybe have struggles in their routines and have to overcome them? How do you overcome those? And what message do you send to your students about you got to be tough at times?
Yeah, I think it's different for every athlete. And that's the really unique thing about athletics is learning the athletes you're coaching. I'm going to coach Susie completely different than I'm going to coach Jane. And, how I'm going to help Susie get over a mental block or, get to that next level, it might be different than how I'm going to help Jane get to that next level. So I think it really depends. It's specific on each athlete on how we address that. Some are really visual learners. Some need tough love. Some need, a hug. And so it just really depends on what it is. And I think that's kind of the cool thing that keeps it exciting is because you do have to continue to learn your athletes and figure out how you're going to coach them to be the most successful.
What message do you take to the students if they do have struggles in a routine, and how do you overcome those? How do you get past that hurdle?
I think it depends. If it's a mental block, taking it back and degressing a little bit and figuring out where that's coming from. If it's just skills, sometimes it's just getting those reps in, let's go to the next rep. Other times it may be figuring out a different skill that they need to do to compete. That's the cool thing about our sport. I'm sure you've seen it in watching videos, but different athletes are going to have different strengths. And that is the beauty of our sport is we can play to the athlete's strengths. So if they're struggling with something, there may be another athlete who that is their strength. And then that athlete can pick up in a different area. So it's really just kind of puzzle piecing, where your strengths are and how to maximize, your athlete's talents and get the most points on game day.
Again, another good quality of a head coach, putting those pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah.
Obviously with this sport comes trust.
100%.
How important is trust in what your students and even with you coaches out there doing this stuff?
It is a huge foundation of our sport. Obviously, I think in any athletic team, trust between athletes and coaches is very important both ways. As a coach, you have to trust that your athletes are going to go out there and give you 100% day in and day out. As athletes, you have to trust that your coaches have your best interest in mind and that they're going to put you in positions to be successful. And I think for our sport, if you've watched it and you've seen it, you hands down need to trust the athletes that you're working with. Sometimes we're throwing them up, 15 feet into the air. You have to build that trust and have that trust that your teammates are going to catch you. Same with acros and pyramids. So for us, it is kind of that underlying piece and aspect of our culture is that trust, respect, love, family. Because I think when you love someone, you're going to trust them. When you trust them and love them, they ultimately become your family. So the kind of just underlying culture pieces of it all, and trust is definitely a strong core value.
How do you prepare these players how do you prepare the players for I don't know how to put this, not the pain, but the pain that they endure on their bodies. I mean, they're going through, a very tough regiment, and they're working those bodies hard. How do you prepare them for that?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. We've implemented strength and conditioning training. So our preseason is really focused on injury prevention and strength building. So our athletes, if you look at them, what they do on the floor is amazing. crazy talented, crazy strength. We do pride ourselves as being one of the strongest female teams at the University of Oregon, just in the weight room. And it's a lot of times because our strength coach, Coach Geisen, he's awesome, but he puts our athletes through different workouts that are not only going to build the strength to be able to compete in our sport, but also help with a lot of the injury prevention, and just building up those muscles, around their core and their lower body. So that's really what we do. We do 3 days of strength and conditioning in our preseason. That's going to be September through December. And then when we get back in January, that's when we're getting geared up for season. And we usually go 1 to 2 days a week of strength and conditioning, depending on what our travel schedule looks like. But we still incorporate those pieces, for their bodies to be able to handle the impact and also handle the duration of our season.
How important is the coach to athlete connection for this sport?
Crazy important. I mean, I think that goes across the board for all sports. I mean, just the relationships we build with our athletes, when they know that we're willing to go to bat for them, they'll go to bat for us. And that's just something that's really important and something that you have to continue to work at, starting in the recruiting process, building that relationship and then continuing to build it once they're, on your team and in your program.
I want you to talk about the coaches that surround you.
Mm-hmm.
And what they bring to the mat for you.
Yeah, for sure. So I have awesome assistant coaches. Going into this next season, I'm going to have Taylor Galvin returning. She's awesome. She was an athlete at the University of Oregon, All-American. So she has the talent, but I think kind of what we talked about in the beginning of the call, she definitely has that passion for the sport. She wants to see athletes successful. She's willing to grind out the work and, just do what she can to make this program successful. Also really cares about our athletes. And I love that. And that's definitely, I think, what has allowed us to be a really successful staff thus far. So I'm really excited for what we have to come.
How do all of you coaches prepare your players for life after the collegiate level?
Yeah, for sure. We try to incorporate a lot of things into our culture. They may not realize it at the time, but some of the lessons that we're teaching them obviously are discipline, time management, those basic things, but also how to build relationships, how to have tough conversations, in life after college when you're in this bubble. And then on the actual professional development side, the University of Oregon's amazing at it. We know that there's no professional acrobatics and tumbling after your 4 years. So we do have a bunch of programs for their professional development. We have mentors. So kind of two parts. The values and lessons piece is something we do within our program. Sometimes the athletes know that that's what they're learning. Sometimes they don't realize it till they're off in the real world, and that's what they've prepared the last 4 years for. And then on the actual job professional development side of things as well.
That's awesome. What do you want the world to know about this sport, and more specifically about your squad that you coach, that maybe they don't know?
Yeah. That's an amazing question. What do I want the world to know? I want the world to know that acrobatics and tumbling is an amazing opportunity for female athletes. I mean, the athletes that I get to recruit and that I get to coach day in and day out, I am always curious of where they would be if we didn't have this opportunity. And that was really the driving force behind the creation of this sport, was to give an opportunity for female athletes that came from these backgrounds. And reality is, if you're getting a gymnastics scholarship, you are elite of elite at the top of your game. Cheerleading scholarships are a lot harder to find these days, to be completely honest. So with having acrobatics and tumbling, it just opens up, between 24 and 45 roster opportunities, for female athletes to continue their athletic career and also get a college degree. So I think that's one of the coolest things. And then I think just if I could tell the world, just watch a meet. You'll be a fan after you watch your first meet. It's so much fun from start to finish. And I have not ever talked to someone that isn't impressed with what they see at a meet and the skill level of these athletes. So I would just say that. And what was the second part of your question about my team?
It was about your squad, about, what do you want the world to know about your squad?
Just the hard work, dedication, and the passion that these athletes have for our sport and our program. And, I think with Oregon has always been the leader and, where it all started for acro. And I think just again, just kind of being a positive female role model for younger athletes, that has been really cool to see as well. When we host camps, you know, we have 8-year-olds that are already excited about being an athlete at Oregon Acro or on Oregon Acro. And that has just been really cool to kind of give this opportunity to younger female athletes that may not have had it 10 years ago.
I mean, I got to tell you, you know, I've known about this sport. I didn't pay much attention to it, but I got to tell you, what I've watched really excited me. Like, it really got me like, I want to go.
I'm telling you, we got to get you to Matthew Knight Arena.
Okay. Right. That's on. We're going to do that.
Perfect.
Coach, I want you to think back throughout your entire sports career to date.
Okay.
This is going to be a tough one. I want you to think of and tell me, you know, what has been your biggest sports accomplishment to date?
I'll be completely honest, getting this head coaching job at the University of Oregon. I think for me, it's definitely a goal that I had set out. And like I said, it's where it all started for me. So to kind of come full circle and be able to now coach the program that I first was a part of and that got me to fall in love with this sport is, I think, one of my biggest accomplishments thus far.
Good for you.
Yeah.
We're gonna slide away from the sports part of this, and I want you to touch on something that I've known about, I've come across, and that's Auntie's Kitchen.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. I talk about it. What is it? What is Auntie's Kitchen?
Okay, so growing up in Hawaii, you call everyone auntie. Whether it's the lady that's serving you lunch, your bus driver, everyone's called auntie. It's just a name, and they may not be related to you. So it's always funny when you take someone to Hawaii that's never been there, and you're like, "Oh, thanks, auntie." They're like, "Oh my gosh, is that your auntie?" And you're like, "No, that's just like a term of endearment here." So since quarantine, I have been doing what we call Auntie's Kitchen, because that has been my kind of self-care, is cooking. And I have been posting on my personal Instagram all of my Auntie's Kitchen, and that was just the fun name we came up with, and I've been killing it in the kitchen, to be honest.
Yeah.
Keeping me sane during quarantine.
Yeah, there is the one thing that I can honestly say that, you know, this has been a blessing and a curse at the same time. And I will tell you that I have stepped up my cooking skills. You know, my kids are absolutely love my home cooked meals. So,
what's your signature dish? I have to know.
Oh boy. Well, I did make a killer spaghetti the other night.
Nice. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it was the best that I've ever made. So I've made a lot of different dishes, but cooking has by far been one of my most favorite things during this time.
Awesome. I can agree.
It's a great bonding moment too.
Yeah, for sure.
What does the future hold for you, Coach?
Well, hopefully we all get back to a little bit of normalcy here over the next couple weeks, couple months. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, but the future is just continuing to, you know, dedicate my time to this program and getting to the top and getting where we want to get as a program, continuing to recruit phenomenal athletes to be a part of this thing we got going down here in Eugene, and hopefully, you know, have a really solid season next year.
And we hope you do too. If people want to keep up with all the things with Oregon acrobatics and tumbling, where do you direct them for this sport?
I would definitely say follow us on Instagram at Oregon Acro Tum. That's OregonAcroTumb. But we post all of our information on there, whether it's a meet. You can catch a lot of our videos there as well. So if you're new and you're like, what the heck is this lady talking about? What is acrobatics and tumbling? Go check out some of the videos on our Instagram. It'll give you a really cool idea of what these athletes do and what the sport's all about.
Coach, I'm going to give you the same opportunity that I give every big name in music that I have the opportunity to sit with. So I'm going to give you the same opportunity to do this.
Okay.
And that is a message to MattyRocks listeners and the Oregon followers that are going to hear and listen and watch this interview around the country and around the world. What would you like to say to them?
Holy moly. I would just like to say that if you are not an acrobatics and tumbling fan, promise me that you will at least watch a video, check it out, And then on a more personal level, just during this unprecedented time, just take care of yourselves, find something that makes you happy, find something that puts a smile on your face. And I challenge everybody watching to do at least 3 things a week for themselves at minimum during this crazy time.
Good message. Is there anything that I've left out? Anything you would like to add?
No, I think we killed it. We covered all the parts. Just again, that this is such an amazing opportunity. We're continuing to grow. When I started, there was 5 schools and we're up to 35. So it just goes to show you over the course of the decade what we've been able to accomplish. And I can't wait to see what we do in the next 10 years.
Great on. Maybe I can continue this into sports.
Absolutely. I think so.
Right on.
I
Thank
think
you.
you got a knick-knack for some sport interviews.
Thanks again, Coach. And, this was truly an honor to do this interview with you.
Absolutely.
Continued success to you and the rest of your team and everything you've got going on in your sports arena. Okay.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me on tonight, and I can't wait to watch more of these MattyRock experiences.
All right. MattyRocks and Keenyn won. Closing it out. Sessions number 2. Thanks again, Coach.
Thank you.
MattyRocks out.